So for my interview, I chose a high-level weightlifting competitor that lives in my area. Um, and what I mean Olympic weightlifting, it's the sport of which it's just the snatch and the clean and jerk. I decided to do this because it's a area of interest that I'm going into, the weightlifting and coaching aspect of weightlifting. And also, there's a lot of mental games that go on in the sport of weightlifting that I don't think happen in other sports necessarily. Some things that are different that can affect someone mentally more than like baseball or football. But so just a little background on weightlifting. It's broken into 3 lifts or 3 skills. That skill being the snatch and the clean and jerk. So with the snatch, you're just taking the bar from over the ground and getting over your head in one nice fluid movement. Whereas the clean and jerk is that you're going to get it to your shoulders and then get it overhead. So it's 2 movements versus 1. In a competition, you have 3 attempts at your max effort snatch and 3 attempts at your max effort clean and jerk. From that, your highest lifted amount from the snatch and clean and jerk are totaled together to get your total, and that's your score for the competition. So for example, if a lifter hits a 60 kilogram snatch and a 100 kilogram clean and jerk, their total is 160 kilograms for that competition. The other thing about weightlifting is that it is broken into weight classes. So for female lifters, the weight classes are 48, 53, 58, 63, 69, 75, 90, and 90 plus. So what that means is just if someone weighs in between 59 and 62 kilos, they're lifting in the 63 kilogram weight class. Another thing about weightlifting is that there's only really 4 big competitions throughout the year. So you have your American Open Series, your American Open Final, Worlds, and then during the Olympic years, you have the Olympics, which plays into the psychology of the sport. But I'll get to that later. So when I started asking this lifter all these questions, I really wanted to get into 3 main areas that we covered: arousal, anxiety and stress, peak performance, and confidence. So we started with the arousal and anxiety questions. How do you calm down after a stressful event? Like, how do you handle, stressful travels, stressful weigh-ins? Because in weightlifting, you do have to make weight in order to lift in that weight category. If you train for the 63 kilogram weight class and you don't make that weight class, your lifts won't necessarily reflect the hard work you put into. And on that note, when athletes want to qualify for the bigger meets, they have to meet qualifying totals. So someone in the 63 kilogram body weight, their total would have to be 110 kilograms in order to qualify for a bigger meet. So if you don't weigh in at that 63 weight class, your totals are going to be different. And if you don't train for those totals, it's going to cause a couple of issues. So I think the first thing I talked about was making weight, and how stressful that was. And it was really interesting that she had a pretty good take on it. She said she naturally sits around about 65, 64 kilograms naturally. So when it comes down to cut weight for the competitions, not a whole lot has to change for her. But she did say there's been a couple times that it was close to her making weight, and she was super stressed. She trains for the qualifying totals of the 63s, not the 69 totals. So she said it was stressful, but she just pretty much put her head down, told herself she would be able to get through this, and eventually made weight. The other big thing I wanted to ask with the stress anxiety is, since weightlifting is essentially broken down into 6 attempts, these attempts are made after months and months of preparation, and you only get 1 attempt at each lift in that minute frame. Like, how stressful is it to know, hey, I've been training for this for 3 months and I only have 3 shots at it? And she kind of laughed. She said that last time she was qualifying, she was having a bad day. Like, the day before, her training did not go well. She was missing lifts that she always hits, and it was just super, super stressful for her. Like, she was mad, she was angry, but she said her biggest thing in trying to stay calm is just to take a couple deep breaths, find that relaxing stage that she likes. She says when she's having a bad day, she'll just go into a quiet room, just kind of be there and let her mind settle down, and almost use the relaxation technique that we went through in our modules, just to kind of like calm herself down, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then she also mentioned that, when she's stressed out, she almost walks away from it sometimes. It's been a bad day, I'm only going to do half my training instead of all my training, because I know you don't want to carry that bad on. So if you kind of stop when it's stopped before it gets out of control, she thinks, hey, I'm going to get a couple of hours of training in and then call it a day if it's not good, because I'm not going to waste a day of training on a bad day of training. If that made any sense. So that was kind of the overview of when we talked about like how she prepared for lifts and all that. We also went into a little bit of her imagery, just the simple things like seeing herself hit the lifts and even hearing herself hit the lifts, because when you get a good punch through on that bar, you can hear the bar hit the plates, and so it makes a clinking sound. The next thing we kind of talked about was peak performance. She kind of got a kick out of this because she said when she was younger and just coming into the sport, she was always super hyped up, and it really hurt her. She was so excited, she would be banging bars out in front of her, she'd be throwing it behind her, like she hadn't found that optimum performance zone until probably 2 or 3 years into the sport. And, she says it's a great learning experience because she knows now how to get into that optimal performance. It's definitely not like everyone else's. She's much more of a quiet, kind of in self kind of athlete, and so she really just hammers in on that peak performance of staying calm, kind of going in there to get your business done mentality. And then her when we talked about her confidence, I asked her, how do you keep your confidence up when it's been a bad day? When you see people who've lifted more than you going into a meet, how do you keep that confidence high? And she just, was really interesting that, she has this mental thing. She says, there's something I say to myself before I lift every single barbell. It's, I'm strong enough to lift this. I'm strong enough to lift anything. So she just has that strong sense of confidence that weightlifters need. Because lifting a barbell like that, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, and if you don't trust yourself and you don't have confidence in your abilities, it's probably not going to go over your head, and it's not going to go well. The last thing I thought was really interesting is that she gave a lot of credit to how she handles the adversities to her coach. She says her coach has done a lot for her, both in and out of the gym, when it comes to the mental game of it, and I just think that shows that coach has a really good grasp on sports psychology. Weightlifting is not always going to go your way. Just a couple weeks ago at Worlds, there was a great weightlifter who missed all 3 of her snatches, so she didn't get a post total. The best 58 weightlifter in the United States essentially failed on one of the biggest stages. So, having a great coach, being able to help her with her mental side of it, has definitely given her an edge in her game.